Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. I heard you say we managed to connect in person, and I just saw the Japanese cakes we had, the Sakura cheesecake. It was amazing.
It
It was
was.
it was so lovely to meet you in person.
Yes, likewise. I love it when that happens and all comes together. So
Yeah,
appreciate that.
definitely.
And I'm glad you're joining me on this. This is not in person, but still good.
I'm excited about this topic because I know we talk about this a little bit when we met up in person, but it feels like such a underrated topic to talk about in this space, especially when, a lot of the emphasis is on like selling, 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 saying whatever people want to hear in order to sell.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yes, likewise. And I think it's an important topic for both of us. So you're a brand and marketing strategist, and I help women business owners grow their businesses without burning out. And in both cases, when you start with really clarifying what your values are, both personally and professionally, both internally for what makes you feel good, and externally of how you project that through your actions and also through the actions of your business, it just kind of breaks down some of the barriers and that kind of internal stress that happens if you're in conflict with your own values. So I'm excited to hear about how you help your clients clarify those internally and externally, and then what benefits they get out of doing that.
I I agree completely because I feel like one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the reason why clarifying your value is so important is because, like you said, all the internal resistance showing up when you're not in line with your value. And a lot of people have this like misconception where they can just push past it, and that it's almost like a nice to have step instead of like a really crucial foundation to
Mm-hmm.
land on. And that is what I always tell my clients because I keep hearing them saying like, oh, I feel so, I dread marketing. I dread showing up. I feel so heavy and so annoyed whenever I have to create content or whenever I have to market my business. And more often than not, it's because whatever they're showing up as, whoever they're showing up as, their brand, their messaging is not in line with who they are. So every time they show up, it almost feels like they have to put on a different mask, a different outfit. They have to play a character. And it's just tough, Like a lot of people want to show up and just feel really good and at ease, and that's totally possible, but only after they clarified your values. So that is what I always work with my client first, is to achieve that internal alignment before anything else.
Yes, I agree. That's phase one of my program as well, is to clarify. So how do you go about doing that for your clients?
So I normally go about it by having them brain dump on me
Mhm.
and just asking them and keep pulling in the threads, like what is important to, as in why, how did they get to where they are right now, right? I
Mhm.
actually heard a really interesting point today. I was listening to a podcast by Conan O'Brien, and he mentioned that I think like a fellow colleague of his has another podcast, and it's called The Three Questions. So what this podcaster does is he would ask all his what do they call him, his guest, three questions, and the questions are, where did you come from? Where are you going? And what have you learned? And I thought that really summed everything up because that is how you get a complete overview
Mhm.
of someone's life, right? And one thing I always harp about in my marketing is that clarifying your value is more than just finding a couple nice adjectives that you thought sounded good in the moment, right? An example would be like most people think the word freedom would be a great value to have. And sure, it totally is, but how does it apply to your life, right?
Right.
Is that really something that you value? Is that your top one value? Is that your top three value? It could be a value of yours, but is it like top three?
Mhm.
Right? And so what I like to do is to get an overview of their life, all of their life choices, their decisions, everything that led them to this moment, and sort of stand back and look at it as an overview. why did you make that decision? Why did you decide to do this? And that, I feel like, would give you such an accurate depiction of what you truly, truly care about. Because that is how you make your decisions, through your core value that's ingrained within you.
Yes, I do think it. And I think once you clarify them, it makes decision making so much easier. It makes marketing easier, like you mentioned, but it really helps you kind of set the boundaries that you want to have with your business, your personal life, your clients, etc. And I think that those are three amazing questions. I love that. I'm going to have to check that podcast out. And then on top of that, I really kind of dig in for my clients and find out, what do they think is going to sabotage them or become an obstacle in their way, as they try to implement the vision that they have for their business and their life. And that brings up some of the maybe the hidden values that, you know, like you said, they might first say freedom because that's something that comes up in conversation and we hear it, and it seems it's kind of more externally driven, maybe we should say. But then when we look at those potential obstacles and the way that they're looking at the path forward, then we can kind of see, like, what are those things that are sort of written in their DNA and the way that they see the world, and their beliefs. And then once we hone all of that in, it's really about creating that system that allows them to actually live those values every day and speak those values in their communication with clients. And I think that's probably where you're the expert, is helping them really take, you know, once they clarify it, how do they turn that into a message, an external message. And I think we've both already hit on the fact that once you clarify it internally, you feel a little more ease, you feel a little more flow in your daily interactions and your productivity. But what's the way that you kind of help clients turn that around so that it's not just about the way that they're thinking on a daily basis, but the way that they're actually presenting their business?
I love that. I love everything you just said, and I really want to like pull out on one thing you said to answer your question, and that is, I think you said like you wanted to look at the objections because that is a representation of their worldview, how they view the world, right? And I think that is such an important thing, and it's a very, very good point, because people do view the same thing with a different lens, right? That is so true. That is what I always tell my clients, is that you can say one thing and 5 different people could interpret it 5 different ways. And that is such a good point. I'm going to steal that because that is such a good point. I love it. So that is really what I want to point out, is that, you know, once you're so clear on your values and your worldview, like you said, everything, all the distractions fall away. Right, because I feel like one thing that people are often getting lost in, especially in their messaging and marketing, is that they would go around, they would look at other people's messaging, other people's marketing, other people's brand strategy, and they would think like, oh, that sounds really good, I'm gonna take that. That sounds really good, I'm gonna take that. So this is where the distraction starts. And then they start, you know, confusing themselves and overwhelming themselves, and they're stuck in like analysis paralysis, saying, that sounds really good, maybe that is the better way to say it. That sounds really good, maybe that is the way I should go about it. But when you clarify your value, you will understand that all 5 options are great, but which one of that aligns with my value? Which one is the path of least resistance? And that is what I always tell my client to go forward with, because one thing that one of my recent clients is a really good example. She is really confused as to what she wants to offer, because she feels like people want to hear something. But what I tell her is that, you know, that person might want to hear that, but you've got your soulmate client right here who wants to hear your value, right? So how about we take what you value and go forward and form a message out of that? Because once you're clear on your value, you can get super clear on your approach. And with your approach, you can get your clients the results in a certain way. You know, there's many ways to that same result, but your result is in line with your value. So that's what makes you different. That's what makes you unique. And that is what your client wants from you. So once we get clear step by step, okay, what is your value? What is your approach? How do you get results? And then we form that all into a messaging. How can we match your unique value, unique approach, and your unique methodology to your client's desire? And that is your whole brand message formed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so once you get super clear inherently, it just spills out. So that is what I always tell my clients, to shut the blinds, focus on what you value and what you think is important, and then move on from there. And then create your approach and your message from that space. And the right people will be drawn to you.
Yeah, I think that that's all great advice. And in my experience, having, been in the online space for many years now and trying to really hone in on what it is my values are, but also like what is the value that I bring to my clients from just me being me. And I think that takes some time and some reiterations. So if you are in this process for the first, second, maybe even third time, realize that each time you go through it, you're going to keep refining that, and that sort of secret sauce that everybody talks about is going to kind of rise to the surface a little bit. And I think you're right. Like we all are looking for a faster way to get results, and so we look to others to lead us. And if they have kind of a template strategy that we can apply to our marketing, it seems like, yay, like, right, they've done all this work out of it for me. And in some ways they have, but you still have to take all the templates that you get, all the structures that you get, and you really need to dress it in your style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you miss that piece, if you don't apply your sincerity, your personality, your style to it, especially if you're in this type of service-based client business, then yeah, people are going to be a little confused, and you're not going to really rise above all the other hundreds of thousands of people who are doing something similar to you. So I think that internal piece, like once we really feel that we can hold that or clarify that, excuse me, no, gotta have some more.
No, but I do really like what you just said, 100%, because I always say you can get the strategy, but you have to add the depth,
Yeah.
right? Because strategy is available to everyone. Everyone who can afford it has the same strategy. So how are you
Mm-hmm.
going to be different? So that is just really to fill in what you were saying, and I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if people are curious about this, but we might as well share it. So I think since we're talking around all the internal and external values, be interesting to share our values and kind of how we got there. I know for me, like I said, it was a long process, and the way that I kind of use it now is in my marketing and my messaging, but really in like the way that I structure my day. I actually, have brought it down to the details of what my schedule looks like. But so I'd be interested to hear about yours, but just to off the top of my head, the words that I use that kind of represent my values are integrity, luxury, optimization, connection, and harmony. So those things, obviously they mean something different to everybody, but for me, those are the ones that like really represent me. And some of the tools that I've used to get those are like personal assessments and things like that, but also just a lot of self-reflection, that depth that you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I love that. And for me, the three words that popped to my mind was limitless, empowerment, and connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because and they're all interconnected in the sense that I want my clients to know that what they have right now is enough. I want to empower them to know that what they have right now is enough, and the sky is the limit. You know, you don't have to restrict yourself into a certain container just because you think it's more receptive or like more mainstream, you know. So that is really what I value within my containers.
Yeah, and so that's also like a really cool way to think about the limitless piece. It's, what we're talking about today is clarifying, and we're talking about getting more detailed and really like specifying those values, but recognizing that that opens the potential. It opens the door. It doesn't have to constrict it. It actually like makes things kind of flow easier.
Yeah, exactly. Because I often feel like people are scared to follow their own value because they feel like, okay, there is three paths, and that is what these three peoples are doing. And so if you stray away from those paths, then you won't be successful because because these are the proven path, these are the ways to go. But I really want to show them is once you clarify it, like you said, it opened doors because there are limitless possibilities out there. There are limitless way of doing things. So find your way, and
Yeah.
to find your way, you need to be clear on your value.
Yeah, definitely clear. And I think there's a comment here about being fearless as well. Deep dives with D.
Ooh.
So she has obviously got some depth, but mentions it boils down to authenticity by being fearless. Yeah. So we do that. And I think that is part of like one reason that we don't put it out there, or we have that tension about marketing, is because we are being asked to be ourselves and to be authentic, especially in the the space of being kind of solopreneurs or service-based providers. People want to know us, and if we're selling something online, we have to get that across. We have to be ourselves rather than that scripted voice that comes from a
Yeah.
template. And
Yeah.
both of us value connection, and that makes sense because we both we both got connected in person.
Sure. But what I really like about that comment is the fearless part, because it is true. A lot of times we're afraid to express our values for fear of being judged, right? So it's easier to take on someone else's value because at least there's almost like an invisible armor. It's like, okay, if I get attacked, it's fine because it's not me, it's them. I'm just adopting it. So what they're doing is wrong. So I really like that, being fearless and being, taking ownership of what you truly believe in. That is a very, very good point.
Yeah. And, it doesn't come without hesitation necessarily. I mean, everyone has a different level of putting themselves out there, and it like making you feel a little bit of anxiety or whatnot. But the more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. So if you feel like an introvert, you can still be authentic. You can still put yourself out there, and you don't have to kind of spill your guts or whatever.
Baby steps. That's why I always say, like, take baby steps. I'm a huge fan of like taking baby steps because I feel like that's the most sustainable way of doing it, right? Like I was telling, my boyfriend the other day that I've been trying to run 5 kilometers for the longest time, but I can never do it until I got this step-by-step plan where that guy is like, run for 1 minute, walk for 1 minute. And that just seems dumb because it's only 1 minute, but it's these step-by-step plan. And like you said, reiterations, right? You keep growing and improving, and just like, exactly, baby steps are better than no steps. Perfect. Yeah, exactly that.
Yes, and I think that is the thing that, like, working with some type of a coach or strategist, it helps you break that barrier where you've got that internal resistance and you need to just start taking the steps. Once you invest to work with somebody, you're going to take those steps because you put something on the line, energy out there.
And it's having that third party objective eyeball as well. It's like, when a lot of times my clients feel like they're doing the right thing until someone call them out on
Mm-hmm.
it, because our ego and our brain would often form some sort of stories to protect us, right? To take that safe step, they would come up with all sort of excuse and making you feel like you're doing something right. It sounds so legitimate. It sounds so right. Like our brain and our ego can be so convincing. So it's having that third party, a coach, a strategist, to break that wall, to break the shell, to call you out on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like one of my clients literally just told me that it's not fun at all. It's not fun. It can be tough work. It can be difficult work, but it forces you to grow. And I think that is such a permission giving, step to take. It's like having the permission from an external party to grow and to accept it until you have that self-trust, right? It's okay to borrow someone else's trust and someone else's confidence until you have it for yourself. So that is why I love working with coaches and strategists. It's not only the accountability, it's having someone to call you out on it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because you know, it's I mean, we all have partners and friends and family that we try to kind of bounce things off of with our business, but they know you from a very personal standpoint, so that objectivity is kind of lost, even if they have good intentions of guiding you and helping you. But when you're, like you're saying, when you're working with that outside perspective, you see yourself differently because they see you differently. And
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a little bit easier to kind of scrape away the fluff or scrape away the things that feel more template based, or, you know,
Yeah.
and really kind of, because you have somebody who doesn't know you that well, so they start asking a lot of questions. And whenever you get those questions, then you start trying to figure out what the answers are
And
and try to buy, right?
it's not that, you know, like I don't know about you, but my friends, family, and partner know nothing about what I do at all. You know, whatever advice they give are not very helpful. And I think having that, you know, someone who actually are super deep into the industry tell you that expert opinion, that's when results start coming faster. That's when you start collapsing time, right? It's having that expert with the right experience telling you which way is the best path for you, and it's just a collaborative process. But yeah, no, you're so right. It's having that objective opinion, but also someone who actually knows what's going on in your industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole process just kind of develops more self-awareness for the client, for, you know, as they're going forward, so then they can kind of lead themselves through that at some point. But yeah, well, this has been great. I think hopefully we have helped some people get through those initial barriers. We had some comments about the realness and the fearlessness, the comfort zone, breaking out of that. So all of those things are really important. And if they still just sort of sound more cliche for you, then do reach out to one of us, to Xindi or myself, in terms of getting some support with being able to kind of strip that down from sounding cliche to really sounding like you, and
Yeah.
someone who can really help you communicate that through words and branding and marketing. And I am more the one who helps you take that and implement it into your detailed daily schedule, so that you actually are taking care of yourself and taking care of your business. So hopefully this conversation has been helpful for people. We'll repurpose it as well on YouTube in a couple of days. So look for that. But Xindi, thank you so much for being on. This was fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, because we've got amazing comments from all of you. But thank you for having me, and have a great day ahead.
Okay, thanks. You have a good evening ahead.